everyone, welcome to another video. And for May's video, I thought it would be interesting to touch upon something that I wanted to touch upon a long time ago, but unfortunately haven't had the opportunity to kind of bring up because it kept slipping my mind for some reason. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I haven't had the chance to see this particular film until relatively recently. And after fully digesting this comedy, as people like to call it, I honestly feel that it is overrated for what it is. Does this mean that this is a terrible film and that I think that it has nothing of value whatsoever? That's not what I'm saying. Usually for my overrated films, including this one does not go to the level of being super terrible or just plain terrible, but it has these moments within it that just make me cringe so hard that it gets to that point at times within the film. Other times it's funny, and then other times it just goes into levels of being like semi-funny to being very cringy. And that film, as you can probably see by the title and thumbnail, is American Pie. Now, to give you guys kind of a little bit of context in regards to when this film came out, within the late 90s, early 2000s, we saw the real surge of teen comedy films. Mostly teen films, at least from my experience, at least going back to the 80s, were relatively more on the traumatic side and tried to focus on real and substantial issues that teens go through. And it seems like the later 90s, 2000s took a shift into being focused on more of a comedy angle and being a little bit more raunchy, a little bit more risque. And I don't have a problem with being risque. And again, this is not the problem, I think, with this film. The problem for me is that the direction that it takes as far as approaching that risque angle, I think, is just not funny and ultimately ends up making me feel very kind of uncomfortable. And again, it gets to that level of cringe where it's kind of trying too hard to be funny and then on the one hand wanting us to take it seriously as sort of a comedy film. So let me kind of break down exactly what this film is about in case you are unaware. So basically, American Pie follows several teenage boys and their non-virginity pact. And what I mean by non-virginity pact is basically they make this declaration to each other that they will all lose their virginity before high school ends. Um, yeah, haven't really seen this kind of concept before being thrown around everywhere. Uh, but at the same time, I think this was one of the first films to kind of touch upon it, but at the same time, is that really groundbreaking? Is this really a groundbreaking concept that the writers just came up with? Or did they just figure this is what's on teenage boys' minds in high school during this period? I'd like to think the latter. So, it's just them trying to figure out how they can get laid. That's basically its premise. And what that ends up boiling down to is a lot of very just uncomfortable scenarios, scenes that don't really make sense or I think really all add up when you really look at the grand scheme of things. And there is a point within this film where literally I would say that it kind of ruined personally apple pie for me. I'm sorry, but this film ruined the genuineness and wholesomeness of an apple pie. Like, why did you have to do this? And again, this is why the film is titled this particular title, is because of what the main character does with a particular piece of food, aka a American pie, aka an apple pie. And it is just so unbelievably stupid. Like, this is the title of your film. This is like your supreme joke that you want to throw out there, people. I understand you're trying to be raunchy, but that's not even funny raunchy, like, and it defies the laws of physics once you actually see the scene that I'm referring to, where it involves a teenage boy and a pie. Like, it's just beyond disturbing to me. Like, I don't find it funny. I think it's bizarre. I don't think any teenage boy would think, yeah, I want to do that to a pie. Like, it just doesn't register, I think, within somebody's brain or mind. It's just, oh, it just makes me want to clean my mouth after watching it. It just borderline disturbs me. I'm sorry, but I pies are meant for eating. They are not meant for your junk. I'm sorry. That's not how pies work. And the fact that they made the title American Pie after that specific joke really made me cringe. Like, when I watched that scene, I literally kind of cringed in my seat while watching it. I was just like, oh god, no, why? Why did you do this to me, movie? Why did you? So yes, that whole pie scene and that whole premise that they try to surround the film by, with this particular pie being like the main joke, the main punchline, is very pathetic. I think, honestly, from a writing standpoint and from a comedy perspective, it just falls flat for me the entire way. Not only does it have that kind of disturbing scenario, but it also has other kind of grotesque, disturbing scenarios throughout the entirety of the film. So not only do you get a disturbing American Pie scene, but you also get a scene involving underage um, sex with an adult. Again, I'm not saying that this is like totally inappropriate, but they push the boundary as far as how inappropriate this is, because not only is the teenage boy doing a woman that could be his mom, but it also involves the mom of one of his friends who he tries to get uh, back at for doing something wrong to him within the plot. And you'll see why that is. And I find that to be so grotesquely disturbing. Like, yeah, in order to get my revenge on a friend who kind of did something dickish to me, let me go and do something even more disturbingly dickish to him. It was just, that part was just very disturbing to me. And I just didn't think it was funny. It wasn't amusing. It just was not substantial as far as any kind of laughter or joke that can be made from it. Like, it's just, ugh, it just, ugh, just leaves a sour taste in my mouth. And also, there is a point where a woman is kind of being filmed when she's not aware she's being filmed. At least I think that's the case, as far as from what I could tell. And it just defies all like logic and understanding, because it eventually gets out to the school and there's no real punishment for it whatsoever. Yeah, the boy gets ridiculed for doing it, but at the same time, there's no jail time. There's no like real big consequences for that. Because in real life, that's how it would happen. See, this is why these kinds of comedies, I feel like they fail, because they try to be outrageous and ridiculous, but then try to be grounded and serious by having us kind of identify with these characters. And these characters are not identifiable or relatable whatsoever. Um, at least with films like Superbad, they treat the whole teenage angle with a little bit of substance. This film tries to throw in all these jokes and all of this raunchiness, but with no substance or quality behind what they're trying to do. And that is, I think, really evident within this film. And I appreciate that at least films like Superbad take this kind of concept of teenagehood, and they are very raunchy with it, but they know how to place everything together so that it all ties up, and not all of the things that these people do are horrible, and you kind of identify with the relationships between the characters. here I don't really see the reason why all these dudes hang out together. I really don't. They don't really have anything in common. Some of them have a little bit more of a personality than others. The main guy who does the thing with the pie is probably the worst character, I think, out of the bunch. And oh, it just makes me want to kind of hurl a little sometimes when I see these when I saw all these particular little scenes that they threw in there that were just for the sake of just throwing a joke at the wall and hoping that it sticks. It's just oh, it just left overall a sour taste in my mouth. Again, it's not to the point where it's complete lemons, but it's approaching that level of purely sour lemons. Again, it's not terrible. It's just approaching that level for me because of the way they approach and handle these teenage situations. It really irks me how they treat teenagers because this film really does look down upon teenagers, especially teenage boys. Like, it just basically insults them throughout the entire thing, making them seem like, yeah, all we care about is losing our virginity. That's it. It's like there's nothing else that teenagers like to do or teenagers, experience. It's like, no, it's just losing the virginity. It's like it's so stupid. So, I mean, and again, it doesn't take anything else into account. It's just about these generic characters trying to get laid. That's really the entirety of the movie. Um, so beyond these scenarios and ridiculous plot points that the film tries to drag us through, because it's really dragging. It's really just dragging to the point of, okay, when are they going to find a girl? When are they going to go to prom? When is this whole pact going to happen? Like, it just tries to drag itself to that point. With these bits of humor that don't really make sense or add up. Like the context even of American Pie, even in and of itself, again, I guess the concept and symbolism behind it is like it's taking something wholesome and innocent like American Pie and like kind of making it not wholesome, but it does it to the point where it's so disturbing. It's just I don't know why people can find it funny. I'm sorry. I just don't find it funny at all. Um, Now, I guess what I could also say in regards to this film is that the reason why I think it honestly got this much recognition is it's probably one of the first movies to really branch out into the raunchy teen kind of film that, again, we usually don't see all too often, at least up until the point when this film was made. And it made a significant amount at the box office that it got sequel upon sequel upon sequel. And yeah, they title it basically the same thing, American Pie, blah, 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 American Pie, this and that. And it's so I'm sorry. There's just things about this film that I think just sink it so low as far as a comedy. And these these kinds of things that you end up like just noticing, like as far as how kind of disturbing it is just it 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 just sucked me in particular out of enjoying it. Are there parts where it's genuinely funny, and are there some kind of interesting character traits that they try to put on some of the characters? Yes, I will say they do that. But do they all work together as a whole? No. No, there's no genuine friendship, I feel, there between the characters. Is there an interesting plot that goes along with these characters? No, not really. Does the ending end up as predictable and as cliche as possible? Absolutely. It's just it's just unbelievable, like the level of just genericness that this film tries to make as better only because they add a little bit more raunchy and unconventional humor in it. Um, so yeah, I mean, I honestly did not care for the way they approached this movie. I think it could have been approached a whole lot better. And the fact that they would use American Pie in such a way is, I just think, disturbing and just stupid, and it's not funny. Um, and um, again, it has its moments where where you can get some genuine laughs out of it, but these moments of cringe just start to creep themselves in as you're watching it, at least in my opinion, and it just sucks me right out of the way of the film, and I just want to kind of check my watch and say, okay, when are they going to get to the point where they're going to prom and they get what they obviously want in the end, you know? And again, I feel like these characters, they don't really learn anything. They don't grow as people at all. Like, at least with films like Superbad, you feel like genuinely the characters kind of grew up at the end and they kind of understood, like, um, how, teenagehood is not really something that's permanent, and the things that you kind of expect out of high school don't end up always coming true in the way that you want it to. And in this film, it does the exact opposite and just lives out, these stupid fantasies that people have. And these really like ridiculously raunchy scenarios that, if you really think about it, if somebody were to actually do that, they would probably go to jail. I mean, it's just it's kind of unbelievable in that sense, and very disturbing to say the least. And I think that's really though all I can say about it. I think it just tries too hard to be one thing and doesn't succeed in either. So it tries to do something identifiable and at the same time makes the characters and the scenarios so raunchy, so ridiculous, and so over the top that you can't really identify with anything. You can't identify with the raunchy humor because it doesn't really, they put it in such a realistic kind of uh, down to earth high school setting and try to make these characters kind of these down to earth dudes when they're really not, and they're not identifiable in any way, shape, or form. And again, this is why I personally feel that these kinds of films really went away, because um, after this film there was a slew of others that were not as well known. But for some reason, this one was the one that got the praise, that got the sequels, that got the attention. And to be honest, I don't think really anybody within that film, their career pretty much didn't go anywhere. Like, none of the actors I particularly recognize except a cameo by Casey Affleck. But again, Casey Affleck just has a cameo in it. And then maybe one of the dudes has been in a couple of other comedies after that, but nothing else. Like, none of these people went anywhere. And I think it's definitely safe to say that a lot of it had to do because they relied on these films, these American Pie films, to be their career. And I honestly think the first one was really the nail in the coffin as far as potential. But it got the praise, it got the money, and they were able to make a ton of sequels out of it. So good for them, but bad for my brain, and I'll probably avoid even watching this film again. I don't think I could sit through it again. Um, Again, it's one of those things where I will say that it's not terrible. There are things in it that can make you laugh, but it takes certain aspects of life and certain aspects of teenagedom and takes it to a direction where I feel it's inappropriate, it's not funny, and it doesn't suit the story. And again, the story within and of itself is nothing special, nothing funny, nothing original. Uh, so yeah, that's really my honest assessment of this movie. And I understand that there might have been films that have been inspired by this movie to eventually make other teenage related comedies. I understand that, and I could understand this film existing, but it's in no way, shape, or form the uh, it's nowhere on the totem pole as far as I think enjoyability as far as from what I'm concerned, as far as I'm concerned. But again, that's just my honest assessment. Again, this is opinion-based content, people. You don't have to take my ideas and opinions as facts, but I'm just throwing out there my honest thoughts. And I think it's important to be honest with people, especially on YouTube, when YouTube is pretty much surrounded by people who just want to give you what you want to hear and not what your honest thoughts are. So that's just my 20-minute cents, over 20-minute cents. But thank you all so much for watching. I would be more than happy to hear anybody's questions, comments, concerns, and anything else they would like to address. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year. And I'll see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.